Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Greg Sloop, and it's time for Live at 5 on this Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. It has been a somewhat snowy day here in the Kannapolis area of North Carolina. Um, no snow falling at the moment, but there has been snow during the day. Just in case you're part of our congregation and haven't heard the news yet, we have canceled all activities for tonight, but we'll be back Sunday. So hope you'll be in church with us on Sunday morning, 9:30 Sunday school, 10:30 worship service. We are continuing our journey through the New Testament this year by looking at Mark chapter 8. Mark chapter 8. The first passage, the first section here is talking about the 4,000 being fed by Christ and the miraculous way that he extended the food. There is a parallel in Matthew chapter 15. Let's start with verse 1 here. In those days, the multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, I have compassion on the multitude because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their own houses, they will faint on the way, for some of them have come from afar. Then his disciples answered him, How can one satisfy these people with bread here in the wilderness? He asked them, How many loaves do you have? And they said, 7. So he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples to set before them, and they set them before the multitude. They also had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said to set them also before them. So they ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets of leftover fragments. Now those who had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. Immediately got into the boat with his disciples and came to the region of Dalmanutha. What do we need to look at here? What are our points to ponder? Well, again, paralleling Matthew 15, this passage describes the other opportunity for Jesus to miraculously feed a large crowd. He fed the 5,000 at another point, and now he is facing a crowd of at least 4,000 men, plus women and children. They had followed Jesus for 3 days and were without food. There was nowhere to buy enough food to feed them all. Jesus asked what food was present. 7 loaves, a few small fish. Jesus blessed them and broke them and fed the entire crowd of 4,000 plus. They were all filled. After they were fed, Jesus sent them away and got into the boat heading to Dalmanutha. This story includes Jesus' departure and his destination, unlike the passage in Matthew. This miraculous way that Jesus fed the 5,000 is just another testament to his ability to transcend nature, to transcend the laws of nature, and to be able to do things that would absolutely astound people here in his Galilean ministry. He, trying to find a little piece of information I'm looking for, so sorry. Dalmanutha was a region in the region of, there was an area in the region of Galilee. And this particular place was on the Sea of Galilee. We don't have exactly where it was located, but it was near Magadan. Um, it was called Dalmanutha in this particular passage, and really doesn't have a distinct location on the Sea of Galilee, but nevertheless, just another city in Galilee where Jesus went to do ministry. The next section talks about the Pharisees seeking a sign. Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly, I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation. And he left them, and getting into the boat again, departed to the other side. This passage parallels another spot in Matthew 15 and 16. The Pharisees ask for a sign from Jesus to prove he is who he claims to be and refuses to give them a sign. Whereas the Matthew passage refers to the sign of Jonah, that the only sign they'll get is that he'll be in the belly of the earth 3 days, Mark does not include that part of Jesus' response in his particular passage. But Jesus is just absolutely aghast, I guess you would say. He was deeply troubled in his spirit, sighed deeply in his spirit, and said, "Why do you need a sign? Can you not believe what you are already seeing? Why do I need to prove myself by a sign?" Sometimes we want God to do things that are out of the realm of reasonable just so we'll believe. God says, just believe and then we'll receive. I think we need to simplify the process, not look for God to do some grandiose thing to show us that he's real, but just simply believe. The disciples don't understand what's going on at times. They're a little bit less intuitive than you might think they are. Verse 14, now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, and they did not have more than one loaf with them in the boat. Then he charged them, saying, take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, it is because we have no bread. But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes, do you not see? And having ears, do you not hear? And do you not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves for the 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments did you take up? They said to him, 12. And when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, how many large baskets full of fragments did you take up? And they said, 7. So he said to them, how is it you do not understand? Well, when they were traveling across the sea, we've just read it, the disciples realized they had not brought bread for the journey. It does say that they had maybe up to a loaf, and that was it. I don't think that particular fact was in the Matthew passage. Jesus told them to beware, though, of the leaven of the Pharisees and of Herod. This part is almost identical to the account shared in Matthew 16. And they thought he referenced their lack of bread, but he meant something totally different. He reminded them that he had created bread and could do it again if needed. And he scolded them for not understanding what he meant. Matthew includes a detailed explanation here, but Mark does not. Mark keeps it simple, just a record of him telling them, you've got to be more aware, you've got to be more spiritually minded so you can understand what I'm trying to tell you. Then the next section talks about a blind man being healed. Verse 22, then he came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him and begged him to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, I see men like trees walking. Then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up. And he was restored and saw everyone clearly. Then he sent him away to his house, saying, neither go into the town nor tell anyone in the town. What are our points to ponder here? Jesus went on into Bethsaida, encountered a blind man. His friend said, please heal him, Jesus. He took the man by the hand and led him away from the crowd, even out of the city walls. Spit in the man's eyes. I don't know how I'd respond to that if somebody spit in my eyes. But the man obviously was desperate enough to have his sight that he didn't mind. He spit on the man's eyes. He laid hands on him. And when Jesus asked the man what he saw, the man said he saw men that looked like trees. Jesus put his hands on the man's eyes again, and the man saw clearly. Jesus sent him away, told him not to even go into town and to be quiet about what happened. Why did the man see men like trees to begin with? I don't know. There's not a clear explanation here. Could it be that the man didn't have enough faith to be healed completely the first time, but once he was able to see something, it helped him to believe for his full healing? I don't know. Did God do it to show that sometimes things don't happen immediately, that there's a process? I don't know. I really don't know. There are all kinds of possible explanations, but they're all speculation. But when you pray, here's what I think we need to understand from this. When you pray and the answer does not show up like you wanted it to, don't give up. Keep believing because God is listening and he will answer in time if we have faith. And then we look at Peter's confession of Christ. This is a real bright moment for Peter here. I think it really helps show him in a light that is better than some of the other passages. Please forgive me, didn't mean to yawn right in front of you. Verse 27, Jesus and his disciples went out to the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And on the road, he asked his disciples, saying to them, who do men say that I am? So they answered, John the Baptist. But some say Elijah, and others one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Peter answered and said to him, you are the Christ. Then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. Christ, literally meaning Messiah. We've talked about that before. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke this word openly. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned around and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, get behind me, Satan, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but of the things of men. Think about these points for a moment. In a parallel to another passage in Matthew 16, Jesus and his entourage went to Caesarea Philippi, and while en route, Jesus asked who men thought he was. They gave various answers that they had heard out in the community. Then he asked who they thought he was. Peter answered with a clear thought that was somewhat amazing and pensive, especially for Peter. You are the Christ, the Messiah. Jesus told them to keep this word to themselves. He then taught his disciples that he would suffer and be rejected and crucified and rise again after 3 days. Peter rebuked him for his thought, and Jesus rebuked him back by saying, get behind me, Satan. Wow, what a rebuke to call Peter Satan. Didn't mean it literally. He was not Satan. He was one of his disciples. He was a good man, but he really did not understand the plan of God for that moment. And that's why Jesus said, get thee behind me, Satan, because Satan had filled Peter's heart with enough doubt that he doubted the very plan of God to be right and real. So don't think to correct God when he speaks. No man had that type of authority then. And no man has that type of authority now. Don't correct God, simply believe him. And then the final passage in this chapter is about the cost of discipleship. Verse 34, when he had called the people to himself with his disciples also, he said to them, whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him the Son of Man also will be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. Let's ponder these thoughts. To finish this chapter, Jesus tells all the people, whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. That just makes you want to line up behind him, right? Take up his cross, deny himself. Wow. That's a strong thing that Jesus asked for, a powerful demand, if you will. But then he explains that eternal blessings and a permanent home far outweigh the value of the whole world. Don't make the trade. Don't trade your soul. Don't trade your eternal destiny for the things of this life. Instead, trust God. He has so much more to offer than this world does. Jesus gave his all. The world will never give you their all. They'll give you something, but they won't give you their all. So do not be ashamed of Christ and his glory. Instead, declare his glory. Be thankful for his glory and share his glory with everybody else you come in contact with. And that's the word for today. Wow, we got a lot of folks on today. I guess the snow's kept some folks in and they're able to be available for Live at 5. Good to see Sharon Noblet, Richard Britt, Jack Weinkoff, Gene Goodman, somebody whose name is Random Stuff, Jesus Image Church in Africa, Murda Meeks, Kathleen Powlis, Vivian Thompson, Mr. Video, and Jaritza Pack, Tona Heilman Green, and Tommy Morrow, O'Shellen Freeze Deal, Cordia Tackett, Casey Weinkoff Pope. Man, it's great to have all you guys on here today with us. It is our blessing and honor to bring you this short Bible study each and every day, Monday through Friday. And we're thankful that you're here today. Excuse me, having all kinds of issues, yawning and now coughing. Forgive me for that. Spend some time with God every day in the Word of God and prayer. It is the absolute best thing you'll do all day. And we have tried to make a great way for you to have time in the Word every morning, every afternoon, every weekday morning at 6 a.m. Another blog posts up for you to be able to go on and read and prepare your minds and hearts for. And then right back here at 5 o'clock on this site, you can see this discussion each and every day and offer any questions or comments you may have on the chat feature. We're always happy to hear from you. You can see the blog itself on gregsloop.com. That's my blog site, gregsloop.com. Would love to have you go on there and check it out in the mornings or midday and then come back here with us at 5 or whatever time of day or night you are available. But spend time with God, whether it's with us or on your own. We love knowing that you're in the Word and you're in prayer every day. Please know we're praying for you, and I look forward to seeing each of you again